London Market Forums, bringing insurance professionals together.
What I'm going to talk about, as Roger said, is talent in the London market and some of the work that I've been doing. Some of you already know me. My background is change and transformation. I've done a lot of work around insurance. I think most of my career has been with insurance. And not only have I done a lot of work around technology implementations and the change that goes alongside that, so organisation, cultures and design, but more recently, some of you might know me from my work with the London Market Group. And I've done work with them around talent and diversity. So first of all, I'm going to talk about some initial research. So the London Market Group, actually, I say London Market Group, it was me. I led this. There was a piece of work around the future of skills in the London market. I was really conscious that there was a lot of good work being done out there, and I wanted to bring those people together so that we could get a market view of what the future might hold for people who work here. The focus was on the impact of technology, and it focused mainly on broking, underwriting, the functions that support those people, and also the leaders. The work was carried out, as I said, for the London Market Group, and we worked in conjunction with KPMG, and over 100 people from around the market contributed. Now, these were people who were already in the market thinking about what the future might hold. So these are informed decisions. There's a whole report out there. These are just some highlights in terms of what the skills are. And the report can be downloaded from both the KPMG website and the London Market Group website. It's actually a little bit easier from KPMG because there's a direct link there on the page at the bottom. But what the message was that there were 5 main areas in terms of what the future might hold and the types of skills that would be valuable to the people in those roles. So data analytics and technology, these are things that have come up time and time again today. Creativity and innovation. These are things I believe that sort of sit separately. It's about how these skills interact to help create solutions. And if you have an understanding of data, it's not just being able to get that data, but then having the creativity and the openness to work with other people to come up with new solutions that are for the benefit of your organisation and the clients and the market as a whole. Risk partnering. There was a very strong view that actually going forward, there is a need to partner more. Not just with technology providers, but also clients, and having a deep understanding of what their needs are, and also being more proactive. There's so much data out there, so it's about, as insurers and brokers, looking at what they're dealing with and being able to go to them with a deeper understanding of their environment that they're working in, the challenges, and being more proactive in terms of creative solutions. And then coming out of that is change leadership. And I think that came out most strongly for leaders, that anybody who's a leader in this market needs to be able to manage their people through change. And as we've touched on many times over the last few hours, the pace of change is very, very quick. And actually, it's a specialist skill to be able to manage that change. But also, as individuals, one of the key messages that came out of this research is that you need to take more control of your future. And I believe that looking sort of at yourself introspectively and looking at you as an individual and your behaviour, that's inherent in terms of how human beings operate, it maybe will help you manage that and be more open to change going forward. One of the interesting things for me was, as part of the launch of this research, there were a number of events run by the LMG, and I ran one specifically for young professionals. And there's a really amazing turnout. We were expecting 50 people, and they just kept piling in. It was quite good to see that people were really, really interested in knowing more. And I think there's about 70, 75 people in the room. And I asked the question, after they'd seen all the insights that we presented to them, do you feel prepared for the future? And young professionals, we were talking to people in their teens, probably to sort of 30s, not one person put their hand up and said that they truly felt prepared for the future. And that was quite a shocking insight for me, because I sort of feel as an older person, all the younger people get it, and I'm trying to play catch up, but actually they don't feel confident either. So I think there's a real challenge about how we work with people to help them going forward. So my background, alongside change and transformation is psychology. So I thought this was a really good opportunity for me to share some insights with you around change and how you can look at the behaviors that human beings have inherently and how that can help you bring about change. So what I'm going to do is just talk very, very quickly about these behaviors. Now, what I'm trying to do here is condense roughly 2 months of a master's degree, and we've got 15 minutes. So please just bear with me, and I'm more than happy to answer more in-depth questions later. Okay, so some of these things I think you'll probably get already, but I think it's just worth talking them through in terms of that groundwork. So as human beings, we just like people like ourselves. We just do. That's just how it is. We walk into a room, we meet somebody, we gravitate to people who we think might be of interest to them. And that isn't just sort of visually, it's also in terms of likes, dislikes, and quite quickly we sort of suss people up, having a quick conversation with them, and we decide that that person is someone that we want to know more. This is what I believe has sometimes held the market back. So if you look, for instance, at the recruitment process for the market, if you look at the London insurance market, historically, a lot of people are very similar. And this is just normal human behavior. You know, you're interviewing someone, you've got that connection, you're like, wow, I can really work with this person, they're really amazing because they're like me. And that means that this sort of self-perpetuates and you get lots of people who are very similar working together. What you then get as well, and I think we've seen this as we try to implement change, is there's sort of almost like a pack mentality. Well, I'm not doing that. No, well, I'm not doing that because we're all part of this group together. So when you're trying to implement change, it's actually really difficult when you've got lots of people who are very similar. That's just a fact of life. Also, people feel under attack. So I did a lot of work with the London Market Group around diversity, and I can't tell you the number of times that people have told me that it isn't fair anymore because only diverse people get jobs. It's utter rubbish, but people are feeling under attack. They feel that what they know and what is normal has changed, and it means that people feel that there's a divide, there's a bridge, and they don't want to cross that. They just want to keep hold of what they've got. But one of the good things about people is once you've got these groups, if you can start that movement, people tend to follow the crowd. So what it means is that once you've got some traction, you can actually move things on. Information overload. Now, this is quite interesting, because I think it's something that, when I explain it to you, you'll get it, but you maybe don't think about it. So when you were walking to this hotel today, there was so much going on around you. You maybe were looking at your phone, you were walking, you were crossing the road, there's all street signs, there's cars, there's all of these things happening, but you're not aware of every single thing that's around you. And that's because if you were, you just couldn't function. If you were absorbing every single piece of information that you had in front of you, it just wouldn't work. And what you're doing there is attention filtering. You've learned as a human being to start focusing on what you think is important. Sometimes that goes a little bit awry, especially with mobile phones. I absolutely hate walking around people on mobile phones. They think they're walking with a crown, but they're not. So I think people often overestimate the fact that they're managing to do more things than they actually are. When you were walking as well, you don't think about walking. You don't think about, I'm putting one foot in front of the other, I'm bending my knee. You don't do that. These are things that you do automatically now. So as you learn how to do things, you just do them. So this is what happens with our processes and our technology. So once you've actually got something, you've got it. You don't think about it. And this is why change is so difficult. So for instance, if you take a Microsoft product, people get Microsoft products and quite quickly can navigate changes and even just how to do something. You know how to press file, save, all of those sorts of things. And that's what makes things intuitive. And this links on to schemas. So the way brains are comprised, we can't prove this, but there's a very strong established view within psychologists that the way information is held in brains is through schemas. So imagine a tree. And it's about, you've got lots of pieces of information and it all comes together to give you a holistic view of a certain item. So for instance, to put it into an example, if you're walking along the street and you come across a group of people, so you're thinking, okay, which schema? So schema is like groups of people. It could be a demonstration, it could just be some people hanging outside a pub, it could be a wedding. So what you're doing is you're gathering more and more information and working your way down these trees to figure out what something is. And what we're trying to do is, as we develop brains, is develop those schemas. So if you've got the Microsoft Office schema, you will have another little branch coming off when a new product comes out. So this is what we're trying to do when we're trying to develop people's brains and get them to do things slightly differently. And stereotypes. Stereotypes is going to touch on, because that's really useful in terms of when you're making assumptions about things. It can be a bad thing, but it's all part of this attention filtering. And you think, okay, yeah, I get that. I know what that is. I formed a stereotype. I don't need to think about it, okay? So I talked about information overload and how people are sort of filtering things out and just getting on with things and trying to automate things as much as possible, which sounds a little bit doom and gloom, but actually, in terms of changing that, humans are actually constantly learning. That's what we do. We like learning. And those ingrained behaviors can be difficult to change, but actually, we are remarkably good at adapting. If you think about, for instance, mobile phones. Well, actually, we'll take a step back. Phones, full stop. So when I was young, back in the 70s, we got a phone. It didn't ring for a while, but we had a phone. It was sat there. And we're like, okay, phone. I don't remember if we even knew anybody with a phone. But then when it rang, we'd go, who is it? It's like, well, I don't know. Maybe we should pick it up. And by the time we'd all just sort of thought about, Dad will pick it up. And it's like, they've gone, because we spent so much time faffing around. You look at that from the 70s and where we are now. You know, people have their mobile phones. And actually, if they don't see their ID and they don't know who it is, maybe they won't even answer it. But things have changed, and changed quite significantly. So some of the stats around iPhones you've probably heard before, that the iPhone, I think, was launched in 2007. In 12 years, it just feels like it's been around forever, but that's something that we've adapted to really, really quickly. Little things like electric windows on cars. You know, people were used to winding things up, but actually really quickly, you press a button, it's like, wow, you know, this is amazing, you know, at the back annoying your dad with the window going up and down. But it just goes to show that people do learn how to do things quite quickly. And one of the key things here is you learn because you see it's a shortcut, there's a benefit, and that's why you get excited about things. So I'd call that a light bulb moment. I mean, there's a light bulb moment used in lots of different terms in terms of, you know, innovation and all of that. But as human beings, there is something about having a light bulb moment where you sort of get why there's a benefit around that.